and everything is okay. So you can go ahead and start streaming.
Mm-hmm.
So
You see the
Midwinter,
sound.
I will now request you to come on camera, and Mr. James, if that is okay with you, you can also come on camera. The meeting is streaming live on YouTube now, so we can go. So, good evening, our cherished viewers. Welcome to another episode of the AYLF Dialogue Series. And we are absolutely thrilled to have all of you here with us today. Those who have joined us and those who will be joining us, you are all welcome. And if you are with us today, please do your best to share the link with your friends and everyone who you think this will be very helpful to the person. So this discussion is going to be very insightful because over the past week, we have all witnessed what happened in Kenya, and we are bringing you a reflection, thought-provoking thought, and also an experience from those who were in the ground. And we hope that at the end of this, we will learn, unlearn, and get more from this. So without saying much, I would like to welcome my guest, which one is Mr. Pigbin Odimwango, AYLF, capacity building, and also a Pan-African activist. And we have Maid Winter, who is also an advocate for equality and also equity. And we have Mr. James Apreku, who is the who is the main founder of AYLF. And in his novel thought, we are here today to discuss this. So this moment, I would invite Mr. Pigbin to shortly introduce himself properly so that our viewers can also get to know him. So Mr. Pigbin, you are welcome.
Greetings, comrades. Hope you can hear me. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. It's nice to see you again, Brother James, and greetings to my sister from Kenya, Nyambura, and greetings to all those who are watching us today. Once again, my name is Pidgin Odumengu. Yeah, I wear so many hats in so many angles, including what is very important here is that I am a capacity building officer, of course, in terms of leadership and capacity building under African Youth Young Leaders Foundation, which is our ALF. And our main work is to build the capacity of younger people in order to be progressive enough to take over the continent where it's supposed to be. So we bring young people and make them ready for the leadership of the continent. I am equally, of course, a progressive Pan-African. I am a co-chair of a philosophical class, which is a consciousness philosophy and a biological class, where we study the philosophy of common Nkrumah for decolonizing Africa, with the total purpose of liberation, unification, and development of Africa. I am equally Secretary General of Global African Congress that fight for reparations of all the reparatory justice and restitution under Kenya, and I'm a member of Global Africa Congress UK. Apart from that, I'm of course a policy and strategist officer under Center for Policy and Strategic Intervention. I'm a founder of a political party in Kenya called Accountability and Transparency Party. I was a presidential aspirant in the previous election in Kenya. And there are so many other things just to mention a few that I did. So I do a lot of this, including research on Pan-African issues, which I do daily and every time. And I'm also an activist, of course, very active politically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pigbin. This is really wonderful. Then I will give the floor to Ms. Midwinter to go ahead in 1 minute or brief. That will be interesting. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It is with deep honor that I am here. And I am Midwinter Nyambura from Kenya, a student of leadership at the International Leadership University, currently elected as the Secretary General in that particular institution, and also in a party by the name Harakati Development Party. I am honored to serve as the Secretary General, and also simply just a patriotic Kenyan vocal about reforms, freedom, and equity. Thank you. It's an honor being here.
Thank you so much, Ms. midwinter. And now I'll give the floor to Mr. James Apreku to introduce himself in a minute or less. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kofi, for this great opportunity, and I deem it a great privilege to interact with my fellow co-panelists from Kenya on this present topic. As you've already said, my name is James Apreku, a Ghanaian by nationality, and I'm the founder of African Young Leaders Foundation. It's really a great privilege to have you all on this particular section. I'm looking forward for a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. James. So this evening, I want to remind our viewers that the topic we are discussing is about from protest to policy change, evaluating the impact of Gen Z's activism on Kenya governance. So basically, we are going to talk about the whole issue that happens in Kenya. In case you have not yet gotten in depth of what happens or what went out on Kenya, this is the best platform to be at the moment. And dear cherished viewers, you are most welcome once again. And I also invite you to send in your comment, your reflections, as well as questions, and it will surely be addressed as we move ahead. So without much ado, I would like firstly to give the floor to our first panelist, which is Mr. Pigbin, to kindly, briefly tell us the genesis of Gen Z's activism in Kenya and the key issue that sparked this protest, and further, what were the main causes that leads to the wave of activism. Thank you.
Greetings once again. Thank you very much. You see, the governments, the people have always been against the government historically, because the democratic principles claim and actually envision that a government should be for the people, by the people. But in reality, governments have never been for the people, especially in the continent, the minority. And therefore, the people have always rejected government for a period of time. And they reject government basically because governments do not fulfill their aspirations to the interests of the people. The reason why government should exist is actually to take care of the welfare of the people. And if the welfare of the people is not taken care of, every government or every people will always rise against such government. Now, if you look back a bit, there are so many younger people in different generations who have fought for change. In fact, changes in different countries of the continent, in different spaces of our liberation struggles, have always been spearheaded by the younger people. So this is not a unique thing in Kenya, where the young people are coming out. We know young people in their ages then. Today they might be old, but in early 70s, even during the struggle for Mau in Kenya, those who went to the forest were not old people. They were younger people who went to the forest to fight for their country. So the spirit of struggle and fight has always been in the younger people. Now, in Kenya particularly, there's a difference in this demonstration that took place recently, because all along the demonstrations in Kenya have ever been spearheaded with their political leadership. And people have gone out to demonstrate, sometimes despite of it being on issue based, but most of the time spearheaded by political leadership. Now, if you look back, there are three phases that I can call a revolutionary phases in Kenya. And the first phase actually is what triggered this phase, the third phase, which I call it the third phase. The first phase is when President William Ruto was actually campaigning to be a president in Kenya. That was earlier before election in August. That was around January, February, March, up to around April. The moment he tried to dissociate himself with the government and came out as a hustler, which is a poor person, and started rallying out the poor people to support him, to vote him in, there was what he called the class revolution, where the low class or the working class or the peasants, if you have to call it, were revolting against the rich class, the so-called the dynasties. In fact, in some instances, even some vehicles for the rich people were banned in Kenya. I remember there was a vehicle that was banned in Jogoo Road, and that was towards the election. So already the people were revolting against what they found to be an oppressive system. And that by then was seen as a dynasty system. How dynasty came in realization in Kenyan politics is because For the last 64 years, Kenya has been led with only 2 tribes, but it was not a tribal thing. One is that it was led by Kikuyu community for almost 30 years, and has been led by Kalenjin community for now, also going close to me. It will maybe make it 30 years with the Ruto's regime. Also that. Now, at this particular moment, the opposition leader was not of the 2 communities. He's a Luo, but he has also been an opposition for the last 30 years. His father was the first vice president, and therefore, the opposition leader who was running against William Ruto was seen to be a dynasty because his family has been in politics even if it's opposition for long. And Uhuru Kenyatta, who was the president then, is a son of the first president. So they appear to be dynasty in the basis that their families have been controlling power. Despite Ruto being in the same power as a deputy president, he actually viewed himself as a hustler because his family was nowhere political. This actually inspired the voting pattern for the year, that was for year 2022. And then it could be seen like a small revolution, even though it was not realized. It was a silent revolution whereby the poor people went to the ballot to remove the rich people, the dynasty class. Now, when Ruto was doing this, he actually gave a lot of promises to the poor people that when he gets elected, he will uplift their life. Because now it was, you see, changing the rich and the poor. So there's a lot of hope within the poor community that were looking forward to take over and enjoy the government. And they were made to believe that their problems or suffering were caused by the regime and the rich class. Now they voted Ruto. Now, after that, whatever Ruto had promised them in 100 days did not take place, including lowering the cost of living. So before December 2022, just after Ruto was sworn in around September, before December, already people were asking for 100 days you had promised us. What have you done? And he had not actually actualized his promises in 100 days. So people started to find the way that this person had betrayed us, and they wanted to also rise against him or gang against him. Now, early January 2023, the cost of living was skyrocketing. What Ruto promised that he could reduce in 100 days. Now, the people started another demonstration. Here, it was amorphous group of course, the ordinary citizen against starting. It was not majorly the younger generation, but the poor people, which include the old and the young, started protesting about the cost of living. When they went for the first protest, there was no political class. When they went for the second protest, Raila Odinga and the opposition came in. I can call that an hijacking of the People's Revolution. The people protested in early periods of February to March, and many people were killed by the government. Then there was another protest that took place at around June to July. Then Raila Odinga, having now hijacked that People's Revolution, and he was now appearing like the leader of the revolution, had now to make a peace agreement between him and the President Ruto. And this one led to what we call the dialogue, which is the NADCO report, which is the National Dialogue Committee. And to our surprise, when the National Dialogue was set up, the interests of the people were never put on the table. The cost of living that people were agitating for were never in part of the report. Now they decided to discuss political issues, which was not the interest of the people. The people's interest was life issues, cost of living. Now, in that committee, there was no ordinary citizen who was in the street being part of the committee. So you see, this is actually a hijacking people revolution for political purposes, and the politicians sat down for months, enjoyed tea, took allowances, and that's how the NADCO team went on for almost 6 months, and they produced a report. That report had not been implemented. Now, there were increases that even sparked could have sparked some revolution, like the introduction of house levy for housing projects. People objected it, but they did not come out strongly, even though there were activists who went to the court and challenged it. But still, it passed. Now, in this 2024, the government, of course, there have been activists who have been agitating, objecting the government has been the goal of the people for a period of time, as I've said before, because government did not satisfy their interests. Now, the government came up with the Now Finance Bill 2024. And part of what triggered the Gen Z revolution was the proposals in such finance bill. 3 of interest. 1, you saw many women coming out to the protest just because there was a lot of tax that was to be put on their pads, sanitary pads, which they never found right at all. So they had to fight against it. there were actually tax that were to be made on Pampers for kids, which was not justifiable at all. They had to protest against it. Now, there was also tax that was to be made on online transaction. And this was affecting everybody else because, Kenya is a digital mobile transfer, M-Pesa. So everybody was objecting that, not only the Gen Zs, everybody. Now, the introduction of digital content tax, which was now to affect where the majority of the younger people live on, because the majority of younger people are in TikTok and those other sites, will actually trigger the younger people seriously to object this bill because they saw that the government was touching their source of income and the government has failed to employ them. So these were some of the few issues that actually were in the mind of the younger generation to go to the streets. And therefore, they went to the street with one mission to reject that finance bill in totality so that it doesn't cause any interference in their cost of living and their livelihood. And that's how the revolution started in this space. But they were very vigilant to ensure that the political class did not hijack this revolution, as they did in 2023. And that's why they have actually sent a clear message so that the political class should stay away from this. Now, over a period of time, you saw the president actually removing the finance bill, and now the citizens decided to hold those members of parliament who voted for the finance bill accountable, including beating them, threatening them, making their life hard. Then, suddenly, now there was another slogan that now was introduced in the revolution, which was Ruto must go. In honesty, to my own understanding, the younger people are not much interested on Ruto going, but rather on Ruto removing their punitive tax policies. And they knew this tax policy was spearheaded by IMF. So this is the genesis. And over a period of time now, they have come up with a list of issues that they want to be addressed. And the president has been addressing those issues by including even dissolving the cabinet. And they are still now pushed to remove the president, which I feel the push for Ruto for must go is actually not purely originating from the younger generation, but a class that is organized, the political class that want Ruto to go even if it's tomorrow, because they are already organized so that they can take over when the young people will be left in the street, the same way the Sudan revolution took place or the Zimbabwe revolution took place, where the younger people demonstrated were never the people who took power after that. So there is now a journey of holding leaders accountable and government accountable, and there's still a push for Ruto government to go just to ensure that he become accountable to the people. But the government hijacked this revolution by introducing the goons. People went to the street, not as young people who were in the street with their smartphone, taking selfies, they were in TikTok, they were enjoying the demonstration. There's a class of people came in, which majority I can say they were millennials, who came in and actually decided now to start looting as the younger people are demonstrating. And this now caused a lot of shop being looted and everything else. And then
thank you. Thank you. Alyssa, before you go ahead with that part, I believe it's one of the discussions we will get along to. So please be easy with us and let us go step by step so that our viewers will get in depth of everything that happens in Kenya. Thank you so much for the introduction and also the giving us a very tight overview of everything, how it started, and also bringing in a historical perspective. I believe this is really helpful, and we will get back again to the next thing. So maybe to add shortly to what you have already spoken, perhaps introduce to us shortly the main idea behind the Gen Z, who are the founders, because we learned from blogs that there are currently no founders, but who are the Gen Zs? Is it an individual organization that has been operating in the past, or how did it even originated? Shortly, in a minute or two, that would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you. As I'd said, there were three issues that triggered different categories of people in society. One, I said the sanitary pads for women and tax for baby pampers. That introduced women to the struggle, not Gen Zs. No matter they were Gen Zs or not Gen Zs, Gen Zs are a group of people who were born between 1997 towards 2012. Those are a group of the so-called Gen Zs. But the tax on pads and pampers introduced women to the struggle irrespective of their age. The tax on digital content is also introduced the younger generation, because this is the generation between 1997 who depend on digital content. The tax on finance introduced even people who are not Gen Zs, the millennials, people who are born before 1996, and everybody has to object the finance bill. That's the situation.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. So I will come back to you. For now, I would like to move on to Miss Mate Winter Nyambura to briefly also share with us her personal experience as she took part in the Gen Z activities that was happening in Kenya. Please, you are warmly welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I joined the protest as a young patriotic Kenyan because I believe that Kenya is a democratic nation governed by the rule of law, and the right to peacefully protest and picket is enshrined in our Constitution 2010 in Article 37. And the only thing that I could give to this particular movement that was about to bring change was simply to lend my time, my voice, and momentum rather. So, as you all know, that this peaceful protests were discussed and information was passed through the various platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok. And it was a very leaderless, it was a tribeless, and a selfless movement. And from me, because I was on the ground, I can tell you that that was a very peaceful exercise. People only had their phones, people had their LA cards, people had a bottle of water. People were so unarmed. And it was, despite of the many challenges, for instance, the heavy police presence, we all remained steadfast, in our demand for good governance and reforms. That was basically the cause of the whole activity. And my experience, I can say that was one amazing experience because being part of what is driving change and pushing change, that was one amazing experience. And what I can just say is that the energy and the unity that I saw the young people have was simply incredible. And what I can just say is that being part of this particular movement was so empowering because it was so inspiring to see so many people peacefully come together for a common cause that is standing for what they believe in for the betterment of our country. Yeah, so it was an amazing experience and it was indeed fruitful. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So far, what I got from you is that it was very a good experience for you, and also the fact that people came together to fight for a common goal. That is a very important thing to be done. And Mr. Pigvin also made us to understand that what is happening in Kenya and people are shouting, Ruto must go, is not directly insinuating that Ruto must be taken out of power, but to take away the people who are acting corruptly or who are not taking into consideration the needs of the people. And therefore, this is why the people are on the street. And besides, it boils back to introduction of different tax that is not favorable to the people of Kenya, particularly women, children, and other people. So thank you so much. And moving ahead to Mr. James Apreku. For Mr. James, we all know that he is not in Kenya or he's not from Kenya, but he has been somebody who have been following the incidents from day one till and even continue to follow as things are still evolving. So, Mr. James, you are welcome to share with us about your personal reflection on what happens in Kenya. What do you think about it? And any other thing you would like to say about the Gen Z movement in Kenya. You are muted, sir, please.
All right. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Kofi, for this opportunity. And to my co-panelists, you've really given me a broader understanding of what I'm even privy to or what you've seen on the social media and or various television stations, right? So I think that personally, the Gen Z's protest in Kenya has been a very remarkable and showcasing their determination and creativity in demanding change when things are going wrong. They've leveraged on social media, art, and then playing some kind of music during the protest shows how versed they were, how ready they were. And as already said by Mr. Pigbin and Miss Winter, I keep on asking myself, who are the organizers, who are the leaders of this great movement? And it is just been revealed right now that it was leaderless. And that is so awesome, to have such a crowd just by pulling the crowd through social media it's very massive, and that is one of the ways and means as we the youth as young leaders, we should use the social media. So it has created a very good impact about social and political issues in Kenya and to the entire Africa as a whole. So the activism has led to a significant policy changes, leading to the activities that follows after the protest, what President Ruto has done, and it has inspired a new generation of leaders. So having listened to both Mr. Pigbin and Ms. Winster, it shows that, the protest resulted, or it was as a result of accumulated anger in the youth or within the Kenyan citizens, leading to certain things that have been done in the past that people didn't want. So this is to show that if you are being gagged for expressing yourself as a citizen or as a young leader, and those in power, if they don't intend to listen, these are some of the things that as young people we will resort to. So I don't think I think it was a good,
Hello, sir. Please, your
outcome
line
that
is.
as I was taking the youth as a whole. Can you
Sorry, Mr. James, your line is breaking and it's very difficult for me to hear what you are saying. Maybe you can adjust
well,
yourself. Okay, now it's fine.
can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, I'm saying that the movement by the Gen Zs was a very recommendable and remarkable, stance that they took in order to protect the public purse, in order not for the government to further gag them financially or to do certain things that to enhance or put so much force on their economic, ability, or in their ability for them to be able to acquire some basic needs in the country. So in a nutshell, I would say that it's a good cause, and it calls for people like us who are trying to break through, who are also trying to pierce through, various African countries, to look at it and then do the same if they need be. I don't know if I'm audible.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. James. This is really good observation. And moving on to Mr. Pigbean once again. So basically, he gave us the introduction. Now we want to delve into the impact this have had, and already we have heard about Mr. Ruto or President Ruto draw, withdrawing the budget and now requesting to rework on them. So, Mr. Pigbean, I would like you to brief us shortly on the impact of withdrawing this budget, and after that, you will add on what you think. What you think is the importance of collaborating, and also what you think is the importance for youth individuals who are all like working to achieve one goal to come together and collaborate for a common goal. For instance, you being an AYLF leadership capacity building, you being in charge of that, what do you think of such movement in Kenya, and how is this really made the activism in Kenya very unique and made it possible for the president to take a decision to withdraw the budget? So this is what I want you to address further. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There are two schools of thoughts in regards to leadership. Those who believe that leaders are made, and those who believe that leaders are born. From my own understanding, everybody is born a leader and is out of circumstances or situation that lead to leadership. Leadership is not purely position holding. That's positional leadership. And positional leadership do not mean that somebody have leadership qualities. Leadership is qualities, not position. And such qualities everyone else is born with, just until they realize what they have in them. So situations and circumstances ignite the real character in you, and that's what causes people to react. Now, the Gen Z revolution and the finance bill triggered leadership that is deep in the young people to come out and actually speak for themselves. That's one thing we must know. So as much as it appears there was no leadership, or it is leaderless based on positional leadership. But everybody in the state is a leader at their own capacity. And that's why they are making leadership move to object or to demand for accountability or transparency. Now, this revolution is a call to the whole continent. That the continent can no longer actually discriminate or put aside the younger people in the policies and their development issues to run the government. The younger people form a bigger percentage of each country in the continent. And the government must realize that it's high time that they must involve the younger people in the decision making. Failure to which these people will feel more of dissociated, and they will rebel and object the system. And now with the technologies and everything they have, when they do such rebelling or revolting against the system, they do it like Kenya is doing it. The only thing that has made the younger people to be afraid or not to be ready to make move to revolt the system is fear. And the younger people of Kenya overcame their fear. There was one quote in the street written, when we lose our fear, they lose their power. The younger people power is suppressed by the fear of the younger people. And if they lose their fear, those in leadership will lose their power. Now, in regards to the impact of this, leave alone the changes it has made in Kenyan President Ruto's government, but the impact and the inspiration it has driven across the continent and outside the continent. I have been engaged with media channels and interviews with the Caribbean in Barbados, in Grenada, in Argentina. I've been sharing this with them in their various TV stations and across various platforms. So that is first alone is very important thing, that the achievement of this revolution has even led us to discuss this today. And you must realize one thing, that the revolution do not cost any money. So people have been thinking that we must have money to revolt. No, it only takes the commitment and the will to sacrifice so that we can actually make changes. Now, the younger people must realize that they have numbers, and number is power. They don't have money, but they have numbers, which is power. Now, President Ruto actually withdrew the finance bill. He called out his cabinet, dissolving the cabinet. The parliament was attacked. Parliamentarians called for apology. The Inspector General for Police has resigned recently. Those are positive things that have taken place. But negative things also is that many young people have been killed. Their bodies are still being exhumed. And many of us have lost our blood. Many of us have been injured. Many of us have done all bad things that have happened to us, abducted. But that is the cause for a revolution. Somebody ended up saying, by Jeff Kennedy said, whoever makes peaceful revolution impossible makes violent revolution inevitable. The government of President Ruto made the Gen Z peaceful revolution impossible, and therefore violence was not actually to be inevitable. It was actually inevitable. So we could not avoid violence because the government was not equal with us. But as we move forward, we know very well that the journey for accountability has started, and this is a positive thing. Everybody is now waking up, and all the movement across now must come together to be united, because now the revolution must now be organized. Because if it is not organized, it will be successful, but it will not be beneficial to those who struggle. So there's a high time now where we are looking for organization so that we can prepare alternative leadership that can take over this leadership in case this leadership goes down, through the Gen Zs themselves forming a leadership that can then drive the changes that are needed for this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So this is really insightful once again, and I love the fact that you mentioned that young people might not have the money, but they have the power, which is the numbers. And once they stand up, they can really fight for a change. I will come back to you with a follow-up question quickly, but I want Ms. Midwinter to address something shortly concerning the general perception of Kenyans regarding these issues of Gen Z movement. I believe Mr. Pigben hinted us on how people were really engaging, even the Gen Zs were there and the older people also tend to join them. But mostly we saw the population was mostly the youth. So we want to hear from Ms. Midwinter if the other generation were also really happy about what the youth are doing, or what's the general perception of the entire Kenyans on this issue. Thank you so much. You are most welcome, Bedwinter.
Thank you. Yes, as you all know, this was a youth-based protest, but they were raising issues about the whole country, or rather grievances that almost everyone would like to air. But it had mixed feelings from the general public, but many Kenyans were so supportive, especially the youth and the generation just before us. They were very supportive because they saw it as a necessary step that needed to be taken so that the regime, this particular administration, would listen and try to understand what are we really, really saying, so that they may not only represent us, but represent us in the manner that we wish and want. Also some segments of the public was skeptical. They weren't sure about the effectiveness of the protest because this is not the first protest in Kenya. So not everyone is sure if it will bring any impact. So some people are doubtful. But may I say this, that this was not an anti-government protest. This was a pro-good governance protest. And also a greater part of Kenyans were concerned about the potential for war and chaos because the previous protests were associated with so much violence, and some were worried about the protesters' safety and the property damages and all that. So it had mixed reactions and mixed feelings about it, but most of the Kenyans were so in support of it because there was need for action. There was need for action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wade. So I would like to also proceed to Mr. James Apreku to also give us his thoughts in case you see what happened in Kenya, if that is a model for other African countries to also do something similar to what Kenya youth have done, or the Gen Zs started, if it's a model, or what does he think about the movement, if it's something that has influenced or could possibly influence other youth organization in different part of the continent. Mr. James, you are welcome.
Thank you once again. Can you hear me clearly now? I want to be very
Yes,
sure.
please.
All
Yes,
right.
please.
So thank you. So if you ask me, I would say that yes, what Kenya has done has really set the standard, and now they are being referenced, they are being used as a litmus test when it comes to youth engagement and youth, proactiveness, holding a particular government accountable. I have followed this protest, as you rightly said, right from day one, and whichever platform I find myself, I could see that people are making reference: Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, and I see one country, I think it's Senegal, who were even making plays to the Gen Zs in Kenya for them to tell them how they were able to gather that crowd, how they were able to convince people to come out to fight for what they think is wrong, So I think it's really a very good start, and if you set the standard, I could see what is happening in Ghana right now. A lot of people are saying that, yeah, let's resort to the Kenyan principle. Let's resort. You want Kenya to be in Ghana because of certain things that are occurring currently in Ghana, if it comes to state properties, corruption issues, and all that. Union labor, UTAG, and all that, they are calling strikes because of bad governance. So I think the standard has been set. And yes, if you have to ask me, the activism in Kenya has undoubtedly, influenced youth movement in other African countries. The wave of protests and demands for change has resonated across the continent, inspiring young people, to stand up for their rights and demand better governments or governance. So the solidarity is very huge, as they've shared their experiences and sense of community and strengthen their resolve for young activists. So if you ask me, that is my stance as it stands right now. Yeah, it has set a very good pathway and it has rippled effect across the entire African continent, inspiring other people to follow suit, devoid of the vandalism or the negative aspect of which we all agree to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. James. At this juncture, I would also like to recognize our chair. Viewers on YouTube, if you are joining us or if you are there now, feel free to drop in your question to it. Yeah. So going ahead, I would like to ask Mr. Pigbin once again to address us very vital issue now. So Mr. Pigbin, you were really quick to talk about the violence that happened in Kenya, and we believe that it wasn't nice in terms of protests. That cannot be ignored. But when it's been being viewed by non-violent activists, they want to seek retaliation from the crowd, but instead, if default that, there was retaliation from the Gen Zs as well to the other people, and there is also vandalism as well as looting that happened. You mentioned it previously. So, in your view, what do you think could have been done better? And in another protest or in a similar thing, what advice would you suggest that they take into consideration so that they don't repeat such thing? Thank you.
I would say that the younger people,
Please, you are not closer to your
can you hear me?
microphone. I don't know if, yes, now it's okay.
Okay, and I can say that the protest by the younger people in Kenya was a classical best demonstration ever. The fact that it was enjoyable, like in one day, they protested until 9 p.m. 9 p.m. in the nights, and they were dancing reggae and singing and celebrating. Have you ever seen such demonstration? And on the daytime, when they were breaking into the parliaments, they were on the grass as the guns were being shot, but they were live on TikTok telling people tap, 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 which means even at the so dangerous moment, they could not see it. They were enjoying it. And that is what the government missed, that to the younger generation, the protest was an enjoyment. I remember one of the days that I was supposed to attend the protest, and I bought a vehicle, but it was stopped that there was no entrance to the town because the roads were blocked. And the young lady who was next to me was so oppressed, like she was so dissatisfied and so angry that she had told her fans that she would be live on TikTok, and now she's not going to make it in town. So she's missing her TikTok thing. And even when they broke into the parliament, they could still be live on TikTok saying, oh, we are addressing you. So to the younger people, this was the best fun they had in life, where the message they were sending was actually very, very powerful. But to them, it was an enjoyment. The young ladies could come before the police officers and dance with the police officers. Some would face them straightforward, and they never cared. Have you ever seen such demonstration? Unless they either the celebration in church for Jesus Christ and they sing hallelujah, and that's how they celebrate. So this is a classical best demonstration ever. That even in the time of our need, even as we push for changes, we must push for it in our best enjoyment moments. Now, what happens is that they never did much mistake. In fact, the fact that they were leaderless helped the demonstration to move forward. Because when it was to be owned by any person, then actually could have not gone anywhere further. The government could have targeted the person and could have brought down the demonstration, or the younger people could have demanded that the person who is sponsoring the demonstration should pay them to go out and demonstrate. So this was a totally committed, true demonstration. And this is the example the whole continent should borrow, that when people go to demonstrate, you must demonstrate and fight for your justice. Nobody should pay you to fight for your justice. Nobody should pay you. And don't need anybody to stand somewhere to call you to go out for your problems. Whenever you find a problem, come out and defend yourself. But the government miscalculated this. By the fact that they introduced the goons to this demonstration, that was one of the wrong mistakes ever. The government ought not to react by killing our younger people on Tuesday, then call for dialogue later. And that's why we have said we don't need dialogue. We will not engage them in any dialogue. And that's very clear. We have sent our demands straightforward. If the president is not learned enough to understand our demands, then he should register for some schools so that he can be able to understand our demands. We don't need meetings that will take tea and everything else. And we have been hosting him on Twitter Space, where we want to spend government resources. So if you want anything to be explained, let him come on Twitter Space. We'll explain for him, or the X Space. We will explain for him what he wants. But also the support for the older generation actually was there. But in the next demonstration, if that has to be, they must also come out physically so that they join the demonstration to make it a government demonstration. It's been very clear. It was not about the Gen Zs. It was about the whole nation. Therefore, the older generation and other generations must have come in to support this, because this is the only way that we could liberate our country. If you find somebody doing what you have been eager to do, why don't you join them? So that is what must be corrected. But we actually must be vigilant again that the government should not be able to abduct many of us, even though we were so active online. If somebody is abducted, we could speak online, and that could have caused more reports, so the government could not kill those people. But some were abducted without our knowledge, and they were killed. The coordination of us demonstrating in groups like 30s or 40s or 50s help our security a bit. So group were 50-50 or 30-30. So you know the people within your group and you work with them together so that if you're attacked, you defend yourself together and you can know who is missing. That was also very progressive. The younger professionals, like the lawyers, offered their pro bono services, which was very impressive. If you're arrested, the Law Society broke into the police department, the president of the Law Society, to demand bail for the younger generation who are actually in prison. The doctors and the medics came out and offered their free services to any person who was injured. That is the spirit of a revolution.
This is really excellent, Mr. Pigbin, and in fact, it's really getting interesting, and I'm enjoying this. I believe there are a lot of lessons that other African countries can also borrow from what Kenya did, or any youth movement that want to embark on a similar activity. They can also get one or two things from what happened to Kenya in order to go ahead with their plan. So, Midwinter, I want you to also share with us shortly the key lessons that you think other countries can borrow from Kenya, and from your own experience, what lessons should be hold on to if in future such things need to happen again. Thank you.
I guess the main lessons that we have all learned from these particular protests is simply that there's so much power there's so much power that there is in the digital mobilization. Like, who knew that thousands can come out by just being mobilized from the digital space? So like we can just take that into account and be like, we don't have to be mobilized by a leader or whoever. There's so much power with the gadgets and the opportunities that we have digitally. And also another lesson, that you can take home is simply unity and solidarity. There's so much power in unity. And we actually united. I say that this was actually a very tribeless movement. We had no Kikuyu, we had no Luo, we had no nationality actually. We were just one as a people, that is Kenya. So there's so much power in that. With all our diversities, we took that as a strength and we came together. And also another lesson you can take is simply the potential of youth leadership. The protests were led by youths. That clearly shows that there's so much potential with our youths if they are engaged and empowered. And also, there's so much power in understanding the legal rights. Many of the Kenyans, actually, those who were being arrested, those who were being abducted, they knew their rights. They knew they are doing the right things. They knew they are defending the Constitution. because it's our mandate to respect it, uphold it, and defend. Therefore, by them just having that understanding of the rule of law, they wouldn't be mistreated in any way. So I guess that's also a lesson to take home, and need for peaceful methods. We proved to the world, and rather to our administration, that we can solve things peacefully, because they were waiting to see that how can protests be peaceful, but to show them that we can peacefully march and exercise our rights that are enshrined in our constitution. Those are the lessons that I took home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is really insightful. And moving on to Mr. James Apreku, please, I want you to give us some strategies, hints on how young activists from different countries can support each other in terms of you talk about solidarity, other countries demanding. So how should this be done practically in order to bind us together when things like this happens, or when it's happening in one country, others to join, because that also increase the impact. Please, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much for this question once again. So in terms of trying to pull other people around to support such a good cause, as I've already said, the Pan-African solidarity is very key. So young people across the continent are showing support, or as they've shown support in the recently Gen Z's protests in Kenya, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose that can be done through by ways of inspiration. All right, you know that some of us we weren't on the ground, but if you go through the social media postings that they were posting, updating the world, because it caught the whole world's attention. Big FM stations, big TV stations in the United States, in the UK, BBC and all that, they all captured this whole incident. So it's a very good cause, and people that go to their pages, they leave very good comments, encouraging comments and all that. And one other way is by giving practical advice to activists, not to incite or not to tell them things that to ignite negative impacts. You know, there are some of the things that I personally disagree. As far as the protest is concerned, there have been a sort of allegation that, you know, that nearly painted the good cause in a bad way, to the extent that they were being engaged in the process of looting state properties, or engage in activities that were contrary to what they intended to do. And there were some kind of videos to that effect where this activists were seen entering shops and then taking out fridges, you know, food and all that. I think that, yeah, to every good cause, there are always bad people around. You know, it is possible that such persons weren't even in the cause. They weren't fighting for the bill to be redrawn, but they were leveraging on that to paint a bad name to the movement. So I think in the long run, or people who give advice, they shouldn't give advice that will lead to a conflict, that will lead to defeating the purpose for which that enterprise was being ignited or being started. And secondly, the demand for good governance. Okay, so if you are to encourage persons like this, as they've done, there's one thing that I said to a colleague, that if Kwame Nkrumah was supposed to come back to life again, he would prefer to be a Kenyan than to be a Ghanaian. That is very strong, right? And this supports Mr. Pigben's statement that there's no fear in the Kenyan youth, okay? And that is why they were all being able to go all out. And I can really say that there wasn't any kind of a fear. They went all out. Nobody was demanding any kind of, you know, resources, money or t-shirt before they protest. They knew their right. They knew that things weren't going right. So let's go all out there and then fight for what belongs to us. And I think it has yielded a great result that none of us ever anticipated, because there have been protests across various African countries. In my home country, Ghana, we've seen a lot of protests, we've seen a lot of demonstrations, but what has been the result? The result has been, nothing. And there's always a barrier right from the start of the demonstration or the practice. And I didn't see that in the Kenyan perspective. And that is very recommendable once again. In most countries, you see that people are printing T-shirts, they're printing some kind of souvenirs to showcase what they're going to be engaging in. In this time around, the Kenyan perspective, we didn't see any of those. So once somebody's unable to purchase or to acquire those souvenirs to show what they're going to be engaging in, it already creates a barrier for the people to come out and then protest. And I didn't see that it was like a national call for people to come out and then demand for what was supposed to be done. And I think that practically, if you are to give an advice, just keep, or even if you're not on the ground, say words that will encourage them, don't discourage, and know the cause that they are being engaged in, give positive vibes, and then things will be done as it's supposed to be done, or as it ought to be done. So that is what I can say as far as Pan-African or the solidarity from other African countries are involved. And I think that what they've done has really inspired a lot of African countries, and then it has strengthened democratic institutions, and it is holding other governments in different countries accountable, because there's already this fear that if you don't do what is right, what has happened in Kenya can happen to us, and it might be worse, or it may be worse, And I'm very happy that during the time that Parliament was invaded, some MPs or ministers in Ghana were in Kenya as at then, and they were in Parliament. So they used a backdoor to escape. So they felt, that no, the youth have the power. And as we are all saying, the youth have the power. We don't have the money, but we have the power. So let's use the power wisely without defeating the purpose for which we are being engaged in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. James Apreku. This is really, really, really insightful. And Mr. Bigby, in your last but not the least address, we have seen in history that similar protests have happened in the past, where Kenyan youth were on the street demanding for justice, and also with different focus though. Maybe that is a decade ago it happened, and currently it has happened again. So what would you say should be ensured so that every reform that is taken this time around is taken or followed to the latter, so that we don't gather ourselves in the next decades to come back to fight for similar things again? Because it will still not be anything interesting. And as we know, history do repeat itself. And if this is not followed at now, if they promised us, yes, we will do, and later nothing is done about it, or if it's done now and in the next years we see that they are changing things, we will still have the same issue. So what will you say about this, Mr. Pigman?
Thank you. Let me start by saying, whoever said that revolution will not be televised probably live in a century where television was not there. Our revolution is not being televised. Our revolution is being streamed. Our revolution will be live on TikTok. Our revolution will be in Instagram, and our revolution will be spearheaded by AI. And this is the new revolution. So our revolution was live all over the world. On their TVs, they saw a revolution. So the old narrative that the revolution will not be televised, ours was being televised. And I think that was the best thing. I would have to appreciate the angle on which the media actually captured our revolution properly. It's not that what happened in Kenya is the greatest thing. There are so many revolts that have taken place in different countries in Africa, but just because they have not got proper media attention, we don't know about it. So we must only appreciate the level the media played, both stream, other social media and mainstream media. In fact, at a time, the president and the government threatened to close one of the media stations just because of how they were exposing this. We must appreciate the likes of Larry Madowa from CNN, who came over to cover this fueling, and we must stand in solidarity with all media personalities who actually endured the hard situation we were in, just to give the world the true story right from the source. Now, to say that there have been, in fact, in Kenya can count, there have been three main processes. The revolution towards the Mau Mau process, and the second liberation that took place in 1980s and 92, when we are removing one-party system and introducing multi-party, and now this one to date. Now, one thing that we must be keen on, and that's what I'll say, our actions were reactionary actions. We are reacting to a situation. But then we need to be proactive enough. So how do you put in measures, as you've said, to ensure that these things do not repeat again? And one way is one, to ensure that the younger generation do not vote the same leaders when the ballot come in, so that they'll go back in the street to fight the same problems where they elected the problems on the ballot peacefully. During the day of election, people wake up peacefully and early in the morning just to vote in a problem and to wait for the day of the streets to demonstrate and lose life just to oppose a problem that they voted in voluntarily. And that's why I advocate that the younger people must be the government. They must be the next people to be in that government. But even if they become the next government, we must also ensure that we are working on something called the People's Pledge, the Accountability People's Pledge. That the next leaders who come to power, whether they're from different parties or whatever, must pledge and sign to be accountable to the people, not to their political party or the president. Because this is representative democracy. You are accounting to the people. So even the younger generation that must come in or replace this leadership must be accountable to the people, so that forever we can ensure that we have accountable governance, so that forever we don't go back to the street to lose our life for problems we vote in. And we must also ensure that we incentivize political positions, lower their salaries, so that people don't rush just to go to be politicians because they're going to earn huge amount of money. Remove a lot of these positions of money in their hands, so that the politicians and members of parliament are people who are only going there to do legislation, representation, and oversight, not going to have a kitty of money that they can maneuver and loot around. So make politics the less interest-giving thing. Make it the least paying job, so that we can have serious people can be in politics who are there to serve the interests of the people. But above all, as I'll say again, is that people tend to change. As they say, power corrupt, but absolute power corrupt absolutely. Therefore, we are cognizant that even the younger people might come in, might be corrupted absolutely with the power that will be in their hand. So we must ensure that the measures for accountability must be ensured, so that if you get a position, serve the interest of the people. And the big thing some of these politicians have been doing is very good to send a clear message to their head that they know that if they don't do the right thing, the people exercise direct democracy. We message the president, we directly communicate to any member of parliament. So this is direct democracy. We tell you what you need to do, not doing it on behalf of anybody else. But above all, the presidents and leaders who are elected in Africa must also not be enticed by the Western influence. Our president has been compromised by his love for the Western countries and IMF, World Bank, and the rest. The leaders in Africa must realize that everything that Africa needs to develop is in Africa, not based on the loans outside Africa. God gave us land with minerals, with resources. If we focus our issues to develop and actually exploit our minerals for our own purposes, we can give our people their best life ever. Than going for the people who loot our minerals here, make money there, then they go borrow them money, then they loan us. That doesn't work. We must live within our limits. Don't make a budget that is beyond your limit. You are collecting revenue of 2.9 trillion, you're budgeting for 4 trillion. Even if you do that budget in your house, I think your house will be closed and your family will walk away. So we need to have responsive government that is actually accepting to live within their means. That's my remarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Piglin, for these insightful remarks. So our Board of Trustee, Mr. Henry Yungobi, is watching us on live, and he sent a short comment that very insightful discussions about panelists. Correct. So this is a warm greetings from our Board of Trustees to you all. And Mr. Henry, we also extended a very good greetings to you as well. So, Ms. Winter, please could you give us your final address or remark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this chance. Thank you for such platforms that young people can air out their view for the betterment of the countries that they represent and the whole continent at large. I would like to say that the experience that I had from this protest has reinforced my belief in the power of collective action and the importance of our voices in shaping the future of our country. It has also taught me the value of resilience and courage in the face of adversity. I believe it was not in vain. I believe it was a game changer. And as the young people, it was primarily centered on the economic and social issues, which I believe through our actions and us not giving up, there will be change. And this will go a long way to not only change our country, but actually transform Africa. Let's not give up. We are close towards the goal. We are on the right track, and viva. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Midwinter. That was brief and precise to the point. So, Mr. James, the floor is yours to give a final remark.
Okay, thank you so much. We are almost there, and to conclude or to give my final remarks, I'll start by saying or by trying to rephrase what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said during Ghana's independence, which Ghana happens to be the first sub-Saharan African country to have gained independence on 1957. He said that the independence of Ghana is meaningless without its neighboring states. And I think that he was so intentional to the effect that we have to always try as much as possible to emancipate ourselves from some kind of mental slavery that, pull us back, that we cannot do certain kind of things as young people. We have the power, we do not have the money. We can do everything. We can control what we want. We can make sure that we hold government accountable. They do what is necessary. And I will conclude by saying that what happened in Kenya, yes, it has a negative impact, it has a positive impact. The intended, outcome maybe wouldn't have been acquired or attained 100%, but the government or the president must also be commended for the bold step that he's taking by cutting down government, the numbers, dismissing, those huge numbers. Because a lot of demonstrations have happened in different countries and we don't see anything. They don't listen. And I think in Kenya, the president has listened, and we think that I think that it's a very good course. So the negative issues, there was one situation I saw a private individual in front of his shop, shooting or holding a gun, trying to apprehend the protestants or the people who were engaged in the protest, because he believed that they were trying to enter his shop and then vandalize the shop and whatever, because it has happened previously. So in order for us to curtail or to minimize such situations or such issues that arose during the protest, such vandalism and security brutality, even from the police forces, are very unfortunate and regrettable, which led to the death of many, some being adopted. That must be condemned to the highest esteem. It's not good at all. And to prevent such issues in the future, it's very essential to encourage peaceful and inclusive protest, foster dialogue between activists, authorities, and then communities, and also to implement a robust, security measures that prioritize de-escalation and then protection of human rights, because I cannot intend to be fighting for my right, but then they have to lose my life. That is unreasonable, and that must be condemned. We expect that the authorities involved leading to the death of these innocent young people should render an unqualified apology to the entire nation, to the families involved. And I've seen that such has been done. There was a section where such people were being condolences were being sent to their families, and I think that is the good thing that they've done to that extent. And they have to establish an independent investigations into incidents of brutality and then ensure accountability. And people who have been adapted for doing the right thing, they should make sure that the law take, or the law go or is being applied to free them, because they were not armed towards that. We saw somebody just holding a battle and a gun pointed at somebody. How can a bottle be deemed as, a weapon to harm a police officer? So by learning all these experiences, we can work towards safer and more effective protests that achieve a positive change without compromising human life and dignity. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mr. James, and I would like to personally thank all my panelists for this wonderful discussion. It has been very engaging, which is attested by our viewers online. And I believe those who will come to also view this video will find it very educative and very insightful. So, Mr. Pigbin, this is not part of our discussion, but I just want you to address this trend which is happening in Ghana. Perhaps maybe we will think about it, whether to bring it in our next discussion. So over
Sorry
the
to
week,
cut you short. I could see Ms. Ayomide Faison is also here. Can you acknowledge that?
Oh, Mr. Miss Ayomide Faison, that is also our board of trustee, and we are happy to have her as well on our YouTube. Miss, you are warmly welcome, and we hope that one of these days we will have you as a panel on this Youth Dialogue series. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So as I was saying, Mr. Pigbean, okay, so over the week, what has been trending in Ghana is an issue revolving Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, one of the flag bearers, I mean the vice candidate for the incumbent party who is running for the presidential position in Ghana, made a comment that over the years, or there is nobody who can be compared to Kwame Nkrumah. He cannot compare the current president of Ghana, the performance of the president of Ghana, to Kwame Nkrumah, because for him, he sees that what this man has done is way better than what our current president has done is way better than what Kwame Nkrumah did. And besides, there is no other head of state who have come in Ghana and performed better than the current president. So for me, I don't want us to limit the issue to Ghana, because it would be like I want to bring in a political discussion here. So I want you to be broad in terms of looking at African perspective. How do you see Kwame Nkrumah, the impact he made, and do you see it is appropriate for a leader to think that Kwame Nkrumah is not really, has not done much as the other candidate mentioned? So I don't want you to limit it to Ghana. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for coming towards the end of this, but thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. As I've mentioned, I'm a co-chair of Consciousism Study Group. Consciousism is also known as Nkrumahism. It's a philosophy and ideology by Kwame Nkrumah. And I think he's the only president who wrote this book as a philosophy and ideology to guide the revolutions. Alongside the books he wrote, including the Handbook for Revolution and Warfare, which was to prepare Africa in case of war as a revolution. Nkrumah wrote for us 3 e-books that was not only for Ghana, but for the whole of the continent, which is Africa Must Unite. And Nkrumah knew that in order for Africa to prosper, it must unite. And that is what Brother James was talking about when he quoted Nkrumah saying that the independence of Ghana is meaningless. Nkrumah was more conscious than anybody else. As everybody was thinking of occupying their own country, Nkrumah was looking at the whole continent. You know how he helped Patrice Lumumba, how he helped so many leaders. And you know the work that was done by our very own friend, there's this friend from Padmo. He brought Padmo to help it, George Padmo, to help the African Institute of Leadership. Nkrumah was putting his leaders in our class and teaching them about consciousness as a philosophy for Africa. Indeed, there are people who say that Nkrumah wasted Ghana money by focusing on Africa and wasted Ghana resources. But because Nkrumah knew that Africa is one. And this is a message to all Pan-Africans and the younger people today. The struggle in Kenya is not the struggle of Kenya. Kenya is a border. It's a struggle of the younger Black people across the globe. And therefore, our struggle is your struggle. That's the same way the struggle of Congo was the struggle of Lumumba. And Lumumba, the struggle of Nkrumah. And Nkrumah helped. But above all, Nkrumah did to lay the foundations. He met serious challenges. You know what he did? The government, the neocolonial government went away. And also we must realize that many independents in Africa were not actually true independence. They were compromised. And there was no true independence that was given to many states in Africa. We must know that. But I like Nkrumah by the fact that he was a leader who could put down writings that could inspire the future generations. And some of his writings are still up to date. And the last book he wrote was Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. Actually, we are witnessing neocolonialism up to date. So no matter how many people of Ghana want to judge him the way they want to judge him, Nkrumah is the first person who brought the first Pan-African Congress in Africa in 1958, where Tom Mboya was. And Ghana was the beacon of hope from Africa. Even though our revolution in Kenya by the Mau Mau inspired the whole world, the same way the Gen Z is inspiring, but Ghana became the pillar for liberation. And with that, I actually appreciate Nkrumah, and people don't want to accept it. They might have their own issues, but Nkrumah is a beacon of hope. Sankara quoted Nkrumah. I'll also say the next powerful person was Sankara. The young Sankara did so many things in 3 years. Gaddafi did so many things for his country, and they were all somehow inspired by Nkrumah's vision. So Nkrumah lived beyond his time. Nkrumah is alive today. Nkrumah's spirit is with us, and Nkrumah's spirit will always remind us to fight as one people, as Black people. As he said, I am African, not because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. And irrespective of where we are, we must stand together. That's my salutation to Nkrumah and to all of us. Let it inspire us. He gave his life, his dedication. Remember, he never even had a house. When he was leaving power, was even having a presidential residence. His daughter came back to look for even where to settle. So Nkrumah was selfless. Nkrumah was a true leader who actually took interest of his people and the interest of the country. That might say now, and I welcome people who might be interested to learn the philosophy and ideology of Nkrumah. We've been doing this every Thursday, reading one paragraph of each of his book and discussing it and building our consciousness. It's a very rich book and a very rich knowledge that Nkrumah left us. So Nkrumah never left us hopeless. He gave us his message, and this message must inspire us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pigbean. And I have some few comments from YouTube that I would love to brush it through quickly. Josiane Adolf said, yes, sir.
I'll be in Ghana soon, before the end of the year.
You are most welcome. So the youth from Kenya are really inspiring indeed. Daniel Njunguna said, this is very encouraging platform for young people to hold. Wake up and make Africa great. Mary Wambui said, nice educative conversation. And this is from Excel Motivation, said vividly insightful. Big up Mate Mentor, big up leaders, big up everyone. So with my own final remark, this is AYLF Youth Dialogue series, and every Sunday we are bringing to you a very insightful and educative conversation right here, and it will be streamed live to all on YouTube. And you can also join the conversation if you want to be part of the panels. Please send in your details to our AYLF Executive Secretary, Ms. Mary Takali, and she will get back to you. So this evening we have learned about what happened in Kenya, the impact this youth movement had, and also we explore some of the things that you didn't even know about it. I believe you learned a lot of things right from here, and we invite you to join us again. So, dear panels, I want to say thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be with us. Mr. Pigbin, I understand how busy you are, but you dedicated this time to be with us. This is really appreciated. Midwinter, you have been very supportive and very active in Gen Z movement, and you have also given us your view on everything that happened, which is very insightful. Thank you so much. Thank you for honoring our invitation to be with us and also to share your experience with other people. I believe many of our viewers and people who come to watch this are very inspired by your input, and definitely when things like this is happening in their country, they would love to take part. Mr. James Apreku, this is really helpful and we are honored to have you on board. We know you don't come out often, but this time you chose to be with us, which is very great and inspiring. Thanks for bringing in a very wide view from different contexts. This is very nice. So my name is Mr. Kofi Bain, or you can add Patrick to it in case you want, but I prefer to be called Patrick. So see you all next week, and we will bring you another insightful topic. So dear leaders, thank